Hello again, Gary Stearman with another Prophecy in the News update, Wednesday, June the 9th. And yesterday, there was a convocation of great minds, the Space Weather Enterprise Forum at the National Press Club. And the discussion was, what do we do if solar storms erupt that threaten mankind? You know, it seems like mankind is running scared and has been, really, ever since we started our space program. If you think back to the astronauts who went to the moon and came back, they took the beautiful pictures of the big blue marble, and for the first time, people began to notice that the big blue marble, our planet Earth, is coated with only a very thin skin of atmosphere. And they began to wonder aloud, what would happen if we did something to destroy that atmosphere? We would all die. Of course, they speculate that carbon dioxide, excessive carbon production, excessive oxides of nitrogen from motor vehicles, et cetera, you've heard all of the scary possibilities for destroying the atmosphere of planet Earth. And this fear has grown, I think, over the decades since our astronauts went to the moon. And it seems like the more scientific equipment we put into space, the more frightened we become. We now have some very, very exotic instrumentation in space. NASA has an optical system called STEREO. That's the Solar Terrestrial Relations Observatory. It's two spacecraft stationed on each side of the sun, to the left or the right. They can take stereoscopic images to watch what's happening on the stellar surface of the sun. That is, storms, what are called coronal magnetic ejections that might send billions of tons of charged particles past planet Earth. Very scary things, you know, they're watching. There's another one called the Solar Dynamics Observatory, SDO, and this one can photograph these active solar regions that are called storms, but that produce radiation. Just in case one should fire off some radiation toward planet Earth, we would be forewarned. What we would do about it, I don't know. Then there's a third one called ACE, the Advanced Composition Explorer, launched in 1997. It's up there watching solar wind gusts, coronal magnetic ejections. It's watching for storms and can give Earth as much as a 30-minute warning if there were a solar storm that was going to send radiation this way. Again, what we can do about it, I don't know. But that was the tenor of the discussion. Now, if you know anything about the sun, you know that for the last 2 or 3 years, the sun has been very, very quiet. We've had about a 2-year period in which there were no sunspots at all, very few storms. But scientists have been steadfastly predicting that the sun is going to erupt into a new series of solar storms. Hasn't happened yet, but here's a statement from NASA. Quote, "The sun is waking up from a deep slumber, and in the next few years we expect to see much higher levels of solar activity. At the same time, our technological society has developed an unprecedented sensitivity to solar storms. The intersection of these two issues is what we're getting together to discuss." And of course, that was yesterday at the Space Weather Enterprise Forum. What are they worried about? Well, they're worried about severe space weather events, societal and economic impacts. They're talking about the fact that the sun could knock out our smart power grids, our GPS navigation. Things like air travel could stop overnight. Financial services. Emergency radio communication might be all we would have in the event of one of these massive coronal magnetic ejections or solar storms. And they're calling this next event that they're preparing for a century-class storm. In other words, supposedly the sun only erupts in this way about once per century, and they feel it's now their sworn duty to keep the instruments functioning so they can warn us if one of these storms is on the way. What we would do, another story. The thing that I find interesting is the fear that's involved. Mankind has become increasingly afraid. The more he discovers about the delicate and sensitive nature of our ecology, the more fearful he becomes. Why? Because he doesn't have a God he can trust in. He's got to trust NASA. I trust the Lord myself. And I've read about the sun. You know, the Lord's going to judge this planet, and I think probably in the not too distant future. And I read in Revelation that there will be a time when the Lord orders angels to pour out their vials of wrath upon our world. The first one is going to pour a vial of wrath upon the earth, scorching man, with sores and so forth. Terrible, terrible time of judgment. The second angel is going to pour his vial of wrath upon the sea, and it'll become like blood. The third angel is going to pour his vial on the rivers, the fountains of water. The fourth angel is going to pour out his vial on the sun. And guess what? Well, we'll go back and look at that one a little more closely in a moment. The fifth angel is going to pour out his vial upon the throne of the Antichrist, and the sixth angel upon the river Euphrates, and dry up the water there. Let's go back to the fourth angel. And this is Revelation 16:8, and the fourth angel poured out his vial of wrath upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. You know, this is exactly what NASA is worried about. And yet, here it is in the Bible, predicted. It's in Holy Writ, and I take it that that means it's going to happen just as writ. Verse 9 says, and men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. Do you worry about the sun erupting? Or do you give God the glory for keeping that sun stable and providing you with just the right amount of heat and warmth and blessed radiation that causes crops to grow, that makes ecosystems function the way they should, weather in its due seasons? Do you think it's all just an accident, or do you think that there is a Lord in heaven who actually controls these things? I'll tell you what, I believe God is in control. He created it. He has a purpose for it. He controls it minute by minute. He sends his angels out to make sure that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing at any given moment. NASA is building phenomenal instrumentation that will enable them to watch what's going on. But believe me, they have no equipment to change what's going to happen. Only the will of God can do that. Gary Stearman with another Prophecy in the News update, reminding you to keep J.R. Church in prayer as he recovers from his latest round of chemotherapy. J.R.'s spirits are up, and we want you to be in prayer for him. Pray for his mental outlook. Pray for his healing. And I know that he will appreciate it. I've talked to him many times, and he tells me that words can't express how much he values your prayers. And we'll see you again tomorrow.